Welcome to Joe's Politics 101. Another episode. The day is the 4th of September 2012. And it's the beginning of the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte. I'm waiting to see. I hadn't really watched much of it today, but I'm waiting to see what their platform is and their message is. You know, you make no doubt about it. You know, whether you like it or not, or like my politics, it's not important. But I'm a bipartisan type of individual. You know, I can deal with anyone if they're reasonable. Before I get into talking about the subject that I want to put up today, I want to kind of express to the audience, you know, people do things for various reasons. I've had individuals tell me, you know, that I shouldn't be saying things about some of the politicians. The governor of Louisiana, Mitt Romney, Mitch McConnell, Eric Cantor, Paul Ryan, or any of those people. Well, I feel like these individuals are in the business of making laws and that's going to affect my life. The reason I put these YouTube videos out is because I'm trying to get a message out, you know, maybe to the low information individual who don't pay much attention to the politics of his state or his parish or his nation or her nation, is to try to enlighten individuals about things. You know, in my community, I see young men and young women walking around, you know, hip-hoppers or wannabe gangsters or whatever you want to call them. I can guarantee you that the majority of them that I see don't have an identification card. They don't have a voter's registration card. They don't have a driver's license. And 9 times out of 10, they're not working anywhere, and they're staying home with mama at age 25, 26, 24, 22, whatever age it may be. You know, and I'm not putting down on them, but my intentions and my thought is that maybe if I say something that may get their attention and motivate them into getting that identification card, getting that voter registration card, getting a job, getting a driver's license when they're driving a car. You know, these are the type of things that I would like to get people to become aware of. I remember when I first came to Louisiana and I was working as a police officer, and I would stop people on the streets, you know, for what I thought might have been a violation, or just hanging on the street corner, to just see who they were or try to find out who they were, why they were hanging on the street corners and stuff like that. I'd ask them for identification. They didn't have identification. So I brought that subject up to my boss. And I asked him, I said, you know, ain't it required that they have some form of identification or something of that nature? I was told by my boss that it was unconstitutional to require an individual to have an identification card. Well, you know, we're a free nation, and we have never ever really enforced those type of laws because freedom, you know. But here of late, the Republican Party is demanding that people have identification to vote and so forth and so on. But that's my biggest reason, is trying to make people aware of the fact that life has changed. Things have changed in this world, in this country. There's a lot of eccentric people around. There's people who dislike individuals just because they are who they are. They dislike them because they just don't like them. And it makes you wonder, what kind of society are we? Our country carries this name of united. But if you look into communities and you live in a community where you see no unity, there's no unity. You can speak to a person in my community and they look at you like you said something bad to them. It's kind of bad, when people who live amongst each other, live next door to each other, around the block from each other, and see each other every day, but then they can't open their mouth and say, hello, how you doing, or throw a wave at you. It's like, I don't trust you, I don't like you, I don't know you, and you can't get to like or know a person until you get to know them. That's just the bottom line. And I hope with this post of this YouTube video that I'll catch somebody's attention. A lot of times people will look at something like this and they'll say, oh, he ain't got nothing to say, he's just crazy in the head, or he's this, that, and another. But there's a lot that people need to know about how your government works. What's the government about? In every parish or county, I live in Louisiana, so you'll hear me refer to counties as parishes. State or the federal level. Every law that is passed by the representatives that you vote for, that most of us vote for, and sent to our state capital or to our parish seat or to the Congress, the laws that they pass affect your life. You may think everything is going just fine, then all of a sudden things change. You can't do it anymore, or there's a restriction to it. And people need to try and understand that. Try to realize that the person that you vote for is going to either help your life or they're going to make it miserable. And we know that politicians, in general, most of them, will tell you anything to get to Washington, D.C. or to the state capitol or into one of the council members' seats or something of that nature, just to get there so they can gain some form of power that will benefit themselves. That's what the majority of them do. Something to benefit themselves or their families or friends or something of that nature. That's how most people get into power. So with that, I'm going to move on to what I want to talk about. We just came out of the Republican National Convention in Tampa, Florida. And I listen to, I have to watch these things. I have to watch them because I know that certain people are going to do things that are detrimental to the welfare of the majority of the people in the country. And I watched the Republican National Convention every day that I could, except for one that I couldn't watch when my lights went out because of Hurricane Isaac. But one section of it that I did get to watch is the one where they had this theme of "We built this." I had to laugh about it. You know, it was comical. You know, that we built this. We built this. It wasn't we all built this. It's we built this. It's like it was a singular thing that they built. They built it. You know. And Chris Christie, Paul Ryan, all these people, they paraded up on stage with this theme of "We built this," and it was all about people from Europe, Ireland, you know, where their families came from, and how they got into this country and did what they did as a bartender, as a plumber, a woodsmith, a metalsmith, or whatever it is that they might have been, how they succeeded, you know, and how their parents raised them, you know. And it made me think, you know, and I had to beg myself the question, you know, I wonder what they thought about my parents, or how my parents was, you know. And who really built this? Who really built the United States of America? And how did it get to where it got to? And it brought back some thoughts into my mind about the old Democratic Party. The old Democratic Party, which spread from Texas over to Maryland, up in that, the 11 states across the bottom of the United States. You know, the states where Jim Crow laws was God, and white men were in control and ruled everything no matter what. It brought me into the mind of that. And they keep saying conservative, conservative, conservative. Do we really know what conservative is? Do we really know what a conservative is, or what the word conservative means when you apply it to politics? Well, conservative is a old thing. I mean, it comes from Europe. It's a British, France, all these different old nations that were in control of the United States prior to the Revolution, prior to the old Tea Party, the real Tea Party that sort of put this nation on track to become independent from the British, the English, the French, and so forth and so on. What conservative means, in just a little quirk of it, you know, you can go on the internet, go to Wikipedia somewhere, and you can find the word conservatism, and it'll give you all of the list of conservatism. There's a liberal conservatism, you know, but the form that our Republican Party today is practicing is right-wing conservatism, you know. And what that basically is they don't want things to change. They don't want anything to change. They don't believe in evolution. They don't believe in science. They don't believe that things happen for a purpose. You know, they think man creates everything and make everything better. You know, they try to throw in the religion with it, want that to be a part of the government, you know. And it's not the way this country was set up. This country was set up to have religion on one side of the spectrum and government and politics on the other. You're not supposed to mix the two, because it won't work. It didn't work in Britain. It didn't work in France. It didn't work in the old days. It just didn't work. When people first landed here, they tried that. They tried separating the religions. Each religion is this and this and that, you know. You have these evangelical conservatives, you know. I refer them to as jackleg preachers. You know, people that's trying to impose their will upon someone else because of their beliefs. You know, the Bible is the Bible. It doesn't matter what religion you practice. It's a different idea, but the same story. It's what you get from religion. Different idea, same story. Just different names and acronyms being used for that particular individual or that particular group of people. So, if only the Republican version of "we built this" is the truth, then there should be no me, there should be no others that built this. Only white individuals built this country. Now, I hearken back to something President Obama said about businesses. You know, when he made the statement about, "You didn't build this," you know, which he was telling the truth. You didn't build it, you started it. People like myself, the consumers, built it for you. We brought you the money, we paid you for your service, and your business grew. If you needed an item for your shelves, it was transported over a highway, or shipped in the air, or on a railroad, or you drove to some place to get it. Without those things happening, you could not succeed. So you didn't just build this by yourself. You didn't take and build a business, spend your own money, paying yourself to become successful. Somebody helped you. Just like he said, the teacher that taught you the math or how to read helped you along the way. The guy that you hired to work for you dedicated himself to that, and he helped you on your way. So you didn't build that business by yourself. You should be thankful to the people that buy stuff from you, that work for you, that make it possible for you to be successful in that business. Now, how did you treat the individual that worked for you? How do you treat the individual that buy from you? You know, man don't make nothing by himself. I don't care how you cut it. And white people didn't build this country by themselves. The lower portion of this United States, from Texas across the bottom part, the 11 states that were considered slave states, it was slave labor that built the economy for the Southern white Democrats. Slave labor. After the Emancipation Proclamation, it was still semi-slave labor in the form of sharecropping. Now, some people wonder, what is sharecropping? What is sharecropping? Well, sharecropping is when you make an agreement with someone to farm their property, to help them farm their land for a season, to produce a crop. At the end of that crop, at the end of that season, when you harvest the crops, it goes to the market, you get paid for it, and you get a cut of it. 25%, 30%, 50%, whatever the agreement was that you and the individual had. Sharecroppers back in those days were either poor white people or poor black people and some Hispanics from Mexico. That was all good. Wasn't nobody crying about immigration and this, that, and another. They used to call them a name, and I'm not going to repeat that name, but there was never a conflict about that. My stepfather was a sharecropper in my growing up early, my early days. And this is a story that I very seldom talk about or tell, but I'm going to lay it out here this time because, sometimes people need to know the history. If you're a young person, you're born in the 70s, or you're born in one of these places like maybe here where I live at, and you hadn't never experienced anything outside of the state of Louisiana, or your parents is inside this city, and you never moved anywhere else or lived anywhere else, you may not understand what the real history of this country is about. It's not all about just being discriminated against during the Jim Crow era. It's about how people survived, how they helped build this country that we call the United States, that we call home. I can get a little emotional about this whole issue because as a 10-year-old child, the last time my stepfather did any sharecropping, we worked for an old man by the name of Rant. He was a mean old guy. I mean, he was like, I've seen him and my stepfather get into a lot of conflicts during that year that we sharecropped with him. And it was getting close to time, around the time of harvest, when you get ready to harvest the cotton and the maize and the different little stuff that they had, which was mostly cotton and maize, which is a grain. Maize is a grain. Him and my stepfather got into a conflict about the kids. He wanted my stepfather to pull me, my brother, and my two brothers, and my sister out of school to help harvest the crops. And my stepfather told him he wasn't going to do that. This was in a little town called Lotney, Texas. Which is one of the reasons I don't really have a good use for Texas, period. All my bad experiences have been in the state of Texas when it comes to black and white. After they had that conflict, my stepfather sent my mother, my sisters, and my two other brothers back to New Mexico. By me being the oldest, which I was around 10, 11, somewhere in that age, sent them back to New Mexico. And he and I stayed there. And I can remember, him sitting in the door of that old house that we were living in a rocking chair, sitting in the door with a shotgun. And he would get tired, when he'd get tired and sleepy, where he didn't think he could, protect himself, he would get me, bring me over there and say, look, sit in his chair, take this gun. He said, if he comes out that door, you come up to that door right there, shoot him. I'm like, huh? He said, if he comes to that door, shoot him. Apparently, I learned later on that the old man had threatened to burn him out rather than give him his share of the money that he was supposed to get at the end of that crop. And my stepfather was not planning on having that. He wasn't going to get burnt out, and he was going to get his money for the work that he had put in that year. We stayed there him and I stayed there for about 3 weeks till they got the crops harvest. They worked side by side every day. But it was at nighttime that my stepfather was fearing that something was going to happen. Well, we went through that, and he got his money, and we went on back to New Mexico, and he never sharecropped again. He said that he couldn't go through that again because he knew that if he'd have killed that white man in 1958, 59, he and I would have probably been dead. Okay? That's the old Democratic Party. People from the old Democratic Party. Well, it's a funny deal how things evolve. You know, some people don't believe in evolution, and they don't really think that things change. They think man changed things, but man don't change things. Things evolve into something else. The Republican Party that you see today is made up of the old Southern Democratic Party. All of the values that you hear the Republicans of today talking about are the values of the old Southern Democratic Party. You know, they used to be referred to as Dixiecrats, which is, you know, I guess a Southern acronym for South. Dixiecrats. You know, they enforced the Jim Crow laws, the old political bosses in the South, you know, guys like old Bull Corner, George Wallace, oh man, there's so many of them, and I done got so much older that I can't hardly think of their names. I have to go look at a book to really name them all. But these was individuals who violently, passionately enforced things. This Republican Party that we see now in 2012 is pretty much that type of Republican Party. They're back to the point to where they want things to go back to what they used to be. This whole acronym about take our country back, there's an underlying meaning to it. It's like a dog whistle or a cat whistle or a mouse whistle or whatever it is. They want to change things back to what they were. You know, even back in 2010 and 11, they were talking about tweaking and messing with the 14th Amendment. You know, and that's a hell of a thing to do, to go back and start tweaking and messing with the Constitution after it's been amended. That means you want to change something back to what it was. Well, we see now how they've been trying to suppress the vote. And that was basically what was going on back in the 1950s and 60s. You know, they would try to intimidate people that were eligible to vote, black people that were eligible to vote, into not voting. Some stood up to it, some backed off. You know, there was a lot of fear back in those days for certain people. You know, fortunately, I grew up and was raised not to fear any man, no matter who he is or how much power he has. You know, not to fear that individual, because what's the difference in him and me, other than he holds a position that's higher than mine, or that might be able to control some things. But as far as physically and mentally, I wasn't taught to just accept things as they are and be satisfied with them. If it's something good for me, accept it. If it's something I don't like, it's not good for me or those around me, don't accept it. You know? And that's how I've tried to live my life. I try to help those who need help, those I can't help, and those who don't want my help, I let them go and move on. But people, my point is, whether you like politics, whether you like me as an individual or my politics, it doesn't matter. You need to pay attention. I don't care what party affiliation you is and who you're going to vote for. That's your business. You know, because once I go behind the curtain, I'm going to vote for who I want to vote for. But this Republican Party that we have right now is not going to do the average American any good. When you have millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars and a minimum number of people controlling that million and millions of dollars that's trying to buy an election, trying to suppress votes, trying to put people in a position to where they don't have a say in what goes on in our politics. You know, you're looking at people who's trying to control this entire country by putting in the person that they want to do it with the amount of money that they spend. They're guaranteeing themselves someone that's going to do what they want them to do. You know, union rights. People are trying to kill the unions. Public works people. They're jumping on them. They're firing them. They're getting rid of their benefits. You know, if you don't understand who you are and where you fit in on everything, things can't work without workers. Businesses don't thrive without workers. People who are in business want to pay the least amount of money they can to the individual that work for them. They don't care whether you can live off of that wage. They only care about what they're going to accomplish from it, from your work. The public sector. When you talk about the public sector workers, you're talking firemen, you're talking police officers, you're talking maintenance workers, city workers, street workers, the water bill lady, the gas bill lady, the parish seat secretary, the sheriff's secretary. You're talking about all of these individuals inside of an organization, whether it be a police department, a fire department, or the city workers or maintenance workers or whatever. If you don't realize that the majority of those people who work in those jobs make up the middle class, then you're missing a big, big point. And most of those people are not working just to have a job. They're working at a career. They're looking forward to a retirement. You know, I stay on this job for 25 or 30 years. I can retire and have a medium income, still have a pretty decent little income from my retirement coming in, along with my Social Security. Then I can live a pretty decent life in my old age. That's what people are wanting. In the private sector, when people work in the private sector, you know, think about it. Let's take this company that Mitt Romney had called Bain takeovers, or however they buy these companies. They got people working there that's probably been working there for 17, 18, 20 years, 25 years, whatever. Well, they go in there and they do what they do, and then they decide, well, it's time for us to cash in, so they cash out. They cash in, cash out. All those individuals that's been there on pension systems, paying into pensions, doing these things, all of a sudden they don't have a in the private sector very seldom allow you to complete is a career. Even in the oil fields, most people don't make it to retirement. Very few. And it depends on where you live at. Most people never make it to retirement in the public sector job market. Now I know I might have just got off the subject a little bit and went here and went there, but this is me talking about things that affect your life, about politics, about we built this. You know, when white people get up on stage like they did at the RNC and talk about they built this, they father did this, they mom did this, they dad did this, they cousin did this, they grandpa did that, I can guarantee you that they pa or they mama or their great grandfather is probably flipping over in their grave behind some of the lies that they've been telling. They've tried to lie their way in, they try to lie their way in, they try to buy their way in. Anything they can do to get control of this country, to set it back some more. Our last president set this country back 20 years, at least 20 years. It's going to take us 20 years or more to recover from the mess that George W. Bush made. And if we put another Republican president talking the way they're talking about taxes, about personal rights, women's rights, the social things that they're talking about with the women's health care, Obamacare, trying to get rid of that, you know, trying to get away, privatize Social Security, privatize Medicare, all of these things. They only want to put this in the hands of some company that makes money off of it out of your pocket, out of your tax dollars. But they don't want to add any tax to the top. They don't want to tax the top. They just want to tax the lower end, take away from the lower end, the lower end, the lower end, and those job creators, the so-called job creators. You know, there's just no way we can have another Republican president. 38 out of the last 58 years, Republicans have ran this country. And every time they mess it up, it's usually a Democratic president to come in and straighten it up. And then it gets back to the Republicans, and they mess it up again. Ladies and gentlemen, if you happen to view this, think hard. Make a good decision about who you vote for. Don't vote for Mitt Romney because you don't like Barack Obama. Don't vote for Mitt Romney because you don't think a black man should be president of the United States. Don't vote for Mitt Romney because you think black people are the recipients of the benefits such as welfare and all these entitlement programs. You got it wrong. You got it wrong. I'm a 65-year-old man. And I have never in my life received any type of welfare from the state, the federal government, or anybody. My parents never received any entitlement, welfare, or any of that stuff from the government or anybody. My family always worked for everything that they got, or they had, or have. Black people are not running around asking for things. I mean, you're going to have white and black, I would imagine, that's going to try to game the system. Well, you can look at that on two levels. Number one, you can look at it where a person really needs it and go get it. You can look at it for the person who marginally needs it and he takes it. Then you can look at it on the political side. People like Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, Pete Sessions, all of these politicians that's got all of these things that they want to do to eliminate the low middle income recipients of entitlement programs. They've been in politics. They've been working for the government forever. They get a paycheck from the government. What have they been doing? They've been on a form of welfare. They've been gaming the system all their lives to get what they want, but now they don't want you to have it. I know this is kind of long, and I'm going to go ahead and shut it down, but I'm going to be putting up another one tomorrow. And it's going to be entitled, I don't know. But those individuals that parading across on the RNC, at the RNC convention, they didn't build this country. It wasn't just their parents that built this country. It wasn't just your group of people that built this country. This country was built on blood, sweat, and tears of a many minority. So don't ever in your life think that just that group of people that get up there and tell you that we built this. If you own a business, you need to think about that. You started that business, but you didn't build that business. That business was built by your customers, by the infrastructure that you use, by the banking system that you use, by the financial system that you use, by the education that you have. You know, those are the things that enable you to be successful. You didn't do it by yourself. There was a guy that came and delivered you the products that you sell. There was somebody walked in there and handed you $2 or $10 for whatever it is you sold. You know, there was the guy that hooked up the electricity. You know, the air conditioner. You know, there's a lot of people that enable you to be successful. So don't just claim all the credit for your business. You didn't build it. You had other people build it for you. You started it, and it was built by somebody else, not you specific. And with that, this is going to be Joe's Politics 101, and I'm signing off. Might be a little rant or two in there, but I think you might get the picture if you watch this all the way through. But you know, most people just kind of glance at it, listen to a little bit of it, and then they move on. But whatever. However that goes, Politics 101. I'm signing out. Adios, amigos.